Hey guys, what's up? Nature from Protoculture and Shadow Chronicles. So, Unfiltered Audio Lion, we're going to check that out today. Super cool synth. I've had it for quite a while on a beta test and played around with it for a bit and then kind of just let it sit for a while and haven't really been using it. I've been meaning to make a video for it for quite a while now. It's not one of those synths that's kind of my go-to, for everyday sounds. But from a sound designer's perspective, it's really something quite special, especially if you're kind of looking for that sort of modular sound, but without all the hassle of having to patch specific modules in all the time. Obviously, you can patch a lot of the modulation, which is super cool, but it's a little bit more refined and quicker to use than a normal modular setup. But that's it. I want to dive in, but today I just want to look at the sound sources, in particular the actual oscillators. There's a huge range of some really cool and very unique sounding oscillators, so we're going to kind of just take a little tour through those. I'm not going to cover the effects and the modulation in detail. I've done that with my Sonic Academy videos, so you're welcome to go check out the videos for Biome and Triad, where we go through literally every single one of the effects and how to use them, etc. But let's dive in, let's check it out. There's some really cool, unique sounds that you can get out of this. Let's take a listen. Cheers. Okay, here we have a Lion ready to go, just the default patch. So we're just going to be taking a look mostly at some of the oscillators just for this video, because there's quite a lot to cover. I have done Biome and Triad in quite a lot of detail for Sonic Academy, so you can definitely go check those out if you're interested in sort of like a detailed rundown of all the individual effects that you have available, as well as the modulation. We'll probably just dive into some of the modulation now as well, but let's see how we go. So first things first, you've got two oscillators running into a filter, and then obviously your modulation source is down at the bottom and your effect signature. But I want to just take a look at some of the oscillators because they're quite unique as far as the oscillators go. I haven't really seen these. Some of them are quite original and unique sounding sound sources. So you have quite a number of them here. You've got your noise oscillators. I'm not going to bother with these too much. You have simple oscillators down here, simple, square, saw. Let's just get this going. There we go. So these are just your simple oscillators. You've got another simple one here, but like in quite a cool format, the way it functions, called the forms, which is essentially just your sine, tri, and saw and square. But the blending options are quite interesting with these. So you've got your blending option. If you have it to the far left, you've just got your sine triangle, and then you can blend further to your saw and your square. You also have a stereo mode for each oscillator. Some of them have the stereo mode disabled, but for most of them there's a stereo mode that you can enable. It gives you really nice wide sounding sound sources. Then you have the sub as well. This is a little bit confusing. It's a separate tuning dial to this one. It's not specifically a sub oscillator as such. What this does it will change the pitch of the saw square. So in actual fact, if you want a sine as a sub, you want to push this one up and then bring your tuning down rather. This will put the sine wave an octave below the saw and the square. And then all the oscillators as well, they have a unison mode, which is also really nice. You can then dial in these little dials here to increase the difference between each voice in unison mode. I'll turn that stereo off just so you can hear. And let's dial in a bit of pitch difference between them as well. And that can apply to the blending as well. You know, I initially kind of expected this to be very digital, just going on some of the effects units and stuff that they've released in the past, but you can get some really nice analog tones out of this as well. Okay, so that's the forms. I want to take a look at the few of the more sort of esoteric oscillators. You've got a ring modulation oscillator as well. So these are a number of different sine waves that sort of modulate each other. You get quite metallic tones out of this. And you get really complex waveforms out of some of these. And bear in mind, this is just one oscillator playing now. You can actually enable the second one to sort of take it a step further as well. Let's just check out the stereo mode on this one. And let's just bring that back to single voice mode. Really nice bass tones from that. Yeah, and like I said, this kind of, if you're looking for that modular sound, these kind of sound a lot like some of the slightly weirder modular oscillators that you can get, from hardware modular synths or from something like Soft Tube's modular, where you're looking at some of the sort of more weird oscillator modules, not the Dupfer ones so much. I forget the brands that they have on offer as separate modules. But yeah, you get some pretty interesting stuff. Let's just check out the wavefold as well. This one was also really nice for kind of gritty bass tones as well. So these are sine waves that go through a wave folder. Just take a listen to these. We'll turn up the fold. I'm just going to dial in a LFO source just so you can hear some of the movement on this as well. Oh, and the other thing that's interesting with these, let's just jump back to the form quickly. I should have actually just pointed this out earlier on. You've got these really handy Quantize knobs here. So you'll notice that these are snapping to semitones when you dial in the pitch. You can disable the Quantize to kind of have a smooth transition between the pitch. I'm going to use the sine LFO just to actually just modulate the pitch here quickly. Blend. Let's actually just move this over to this tune here. So you can hear the stepping occurring there. What you can actually do then as well is stick these into actual chord progressions. So if you, snap them to chords. So we have a minor there, for example. I'm going to slow the LFO right down and then just listen to what happens to the pitch as it sweeps through. Then we can go to a major. Cool. So that's a nice little feature there as well. We'll turn the quantization back to chromatic for now. And let's just unlink that. Now moving on with the oscillators again. There's this harmonic one as well. So this one's kind of like an additive synth. It just adds in harmonics. It starts with a basic sine wave. So there's your sine wave. And by turning up the shape, you can add upper harmonics into it. Get more of a square kind of sound. And then if you bring up the A ratio as well, you get right up to a saw kind of sound. But it's being generated from harmonics being added to a sine wave, so you can get some slightly different tones to the normal analog oscillators here as well. Cool. Then there's a bunch of FM setups that you can use as well. These are kind of hardwired, so you can't sort of set up the sort of routing like you would with something like FM8. But there's some pretty interesting setups that they have here. I believe the two are. Let's just check. These are also kind of handy, just having these little tooltips that pop up. Okay, yeah, this one was interesting because it's got a self-modulation for each of the sine waves. So you got the carrier signal, which is a sine, and your mod is a separate sine, and then your index is the amount of frequency modulation between the two of them. But then you can also feed back on each of them. So the carrier has its own modulation from feedback, as well as the mod as well. So if we modulate the carrier with the mod, let's just bring that back to 0. So that's what you would expect to get from FM, but then you can take that further and then actually modulate the mod signal by itself as well. Again, obviously, don't forget to check out the stereo modes. And okay, going on with these are just different setups, so they all kind of interact slightly differently. These ones have pitch controls for each of the operators, but they work slightly differently on each of the operators. So they share like a pitch mod, but the mod works differently on each of the operators as well. And then for parallel, I'm not going to go into all of these. They're all just slightly different, but this one's kind of what you'd expect to get from FM. Cross modulation between the two. Right, the stacks I was really fond of. They sound fantastic. So aside from the standard super saw that everybody's kind of aware of, and these work kind of like you'd expect them to. It's the amount of oscillators that you can dial up. And we'll blend that in. So you've got the mono signal at 100% now, and as we blend in, the super saw comes through. Great sounding oscillator there. And you also have that now with the square and then a sine, which is actually pretty cool as well. Gives you these really rich, sort of very dynamic sine sounds. And then there's this is probably one of my favorites, the Superluminal. So this is a blend of the Subliminal oscillator, which is under the experimental section here. It is also a sine wave. A lot of these oscillators are kind of sine waves that are processed in different ways. This one uses the dent distortion unit built into the oscillator. But you get some really interesting tones of this. I like this for pad sounds. And again, no modulation happening here. This is just solely the oscillator, a single oscillator running, no filtering, no effects, nothing. Smokestack. So Smokestack was kind of similar to the square stack, but this one has PWM, a pulse width modulation for each of the squares. It's actually just while we're on this one, just whacking a little bit of modulation into this to get that PWM moving slightly. Kind of see what happens when you just add in a little bit of effects into your chain as well. And you get these beautiful, beautiful, rich, dynamic sounds from that. Okay, I'm just going to reset that again, so we don't have to go and disconnect all our cables. There was a few more I wanted to just take a look at. The Vosome, this is really interesting, and actually I've been playing around with this one for a while from one of Michael Hedrick's reactor modules for reactor blocks. They have a number of, they've actually just re-released their Eurorack blocks. So if you're into Reactor, go check those out. There's a free version. It used to all be free, but they've updated them all now for the patch cables in Reactor. And there's a paid version and then a free version. The free ones, just go check that out. It's really good. And this is one of the oscillators that you can get in there as well. I believe Reactor Blocks has actually got a similar module as well. This is really good for kind of getting it's sort of high frequency sine waves once again, which modulate each other, but it kind of creates really vocal tones. So let's just check this out as well. Let's stick that in stereo mode again. Let's play the partial one first. And for this case, we'll just disable the quantization. And I think, once again, I'm just going to patch in some LFOs, because it's one of these that you really kind of want to hear in motion. do partial 2, and we'll actually flip that one around. I should just try this out in Unison as well. Cool. Granular, Pulsar, I found this one a little bit less useful, but for sound design stuff, and a lot of these, a lot of the stuff in this one, I don't think it's really a go-to synth for me for bread and butter stuff. But for sound design work, it's really cool. It's one of those synths that you can kind of get lost in for ages. The Granular one is it's got a probability gate built into it, so you can kind of hear the grains happening here. Picture the grains. There we go. Yeah, the grains kind of stretching out a little bit there. Formant. I'll stereo, just see what happens. And then if you dial up the probability, it's only letting a certain percentage of the grains through, so you can hear what that does. There you go. What other experimental ones? The Kaos ones I actually found really useful as well. Let's just go through these quickly as well. Some synth. Nice sort of waspy kind of tone from there. Just kind of forgotten what actually was going on behind this oscillator again. That's right. Yeah, this is kind of similar to stuff like the Casio CZ or whatever. It's phase modulation happening between the sine sources. That's the phase modulation happening there. But obviously a little bit more complex, not quite exactly what's going on in a CZ. But subliminal, we covered the subliminal stack. Circuit bent. Sounds pretty circuit bent. This one was a exceptional gate squares that go through there. This one again was quite a strange one. This quite gritty tones from that. The Kaos signs I really enjoyed as well. So you can see you have a sine and they kind of interact with each other. So the sine wave, introduce a second sine. Well, those two are slightly out of tune now. I'll just keep them exactly the same for now. And then you can introduce a slight bit of Kaos into each of the sine waves, which modulates the pitch of them. Gives you quite rich tones. And they're sort of random as well. Cool. Yeah, then we covered the sine, the simple ones, and then noise. Obviously, you've got a few different noise ones, like a dust generator kind of thing. If you want to make sort of Geiger counter-esque sounds. Then there's a standard noise generator, and then this crackle generator as well. So I actually quite like that lo-fi noise. Two separate filters that you can play with. And then obviously the standard noise generator. That's the sample rate. Down, there's your noise. Cool. So that pretty much covers all the oscillators. I just like, as a little bonus, we'll just kind of put together, we'll just play around with one of these just to kind of see, you know, how it comes to life as soon as you start adding a little bit of modulation. And one of the cool things with the modulation is they can all be put into a poly mode. So I'll show you that now. We're going to use, in actual fact, let's just quickly reset the defaults once again. I'm going to grab the Superluminal stack. Just play around with this a little bit. Get a little bit of modulation going, put it into stereo as well. So what I'm going to do is use a step sequencer in poly mode to modulate the pitch. So we're going to go with an amp setting of 50%. That's going to give us 12 semitones of pitch modulation. I'm going to do just a few random ones of these, up and down. It's going to give us an octave on either side. Need that one at 0. We'll do something like that and let it play quite slowly. We're going to assign this to the pitch. Now the cool thing with this is in poly mode, you've got this over here, you can have mono and you can have poly, and it's currently synced to our clock. There we go, you can unsync that as well. I'll just leave it synced for now. And in poly mode, it restarts with each voice. So I'm actually going to, because we may not make a pad sound here now, so we'll bring this up to about 8, maybe 16 polyphony. See, you're getting a separate step sequencer for every single voice that's playing. So we're going to use that now to generate some sort of random pitch and then bring in a delay. Over here, we'll go with the reverse delay. I'm going to unlink the delays and get this to, there we go. Let's bring in our reverb. A little bit of modulation on the reverb. Cool. So you can see, I'm not going to dive into the other stuff yet. We'll come back to Lion and do some patch design in some future videos. I just want to kind of take a look at the actual sound sources mostly with this. You've obviously got a number of filters in here as well, which we're not even using yet. And additionally, more filters you can actually load up in the actual effects section as well. And then also some interesting blending modes between the two oscillators. Up until now, we've only been using one oscillator, and that's it. You can obviously add in the second one, and then you have some options to blend the two of them together in different ways. But we'll cut it at that. I mainly just wanted to cover the sound sources for now, and hopefully in some future videos we'll look at sort of some more complex patches inside of Lion. Cool. Thanks for watching, guys. I shall catch you soon. Cheers.